Good afternoon to everyone from Vienna, and good afternoon to everybody in Europe, but we have also presenters from US, so very early good morning to them. Happy to have you again here to this sixth Methane Monday in this year. Continuing from the last year, let's see how long we will have topics and interest from your side. I would like once again to welcome you on behalf of the Energy Community Secretariat and two other associations which with whom we are making these Methane Mondays. So GIE, Gas Infrastructure Europe, and Marco Gas, both European association, but with a bit different scope. And few words about energy community, but I believe that so far everybody is familiar with that, at least from our Methane Monday participants. So those yellow countries are our contracting parties, blue one stays for European Union, and then some observers like Norway or Turkey or Armenia. Here is the issue to bring European acquis to the contracting parties which are still not in European Union, and somehow for methane emissions we started even before acquis became acquis in European Union or for the energy community. So here is just short overview of webinars which we had this year, all in the first half of the year before holidays. So we pass really from certification for companies in US mainly, and then these industrial views on this EU proposal on regulation, which is still very hot topic in European Union for entire year. Then again about the data and how it's seen from different organizations and how companies are reporting in this still voluntary framework. And the last one before summer was the role of satellites in methane emissions monitoring. So all done before summer, and then we took a bit longer break to start in autumn. But nevertheless, today we have two excellent speakers talking about emerging technologies, how to report, how to monitor, and how to mitigate methane emissions. First one will be Mr. Gomez from Baker Hughes, Director in Industrial Emission and Management System. I know that I saw actually connections already. And then we will have from Honeywell President Robert Kestner. And for him, really, it's very early morning, so thank you again for joining in this time gap. Then we will have question and answers. So with that, I would like to ask Mr. Gomez to take the floor.
Thank you, Carolina. Can you hear me well? Can you see me well? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to share a couple of pages that
unfortunately we cannot hear you, so it must be something with muting function or with microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so tell me if there is any issue. I'm going to share a couple of pages that I'm proposing for the discussion of today. Let me know when you can see these pages.
Yes.
Perfect. Then let's start. Good morning to those in the US and good afternoon for those in Europe or the rest of the world. My name is Stefan Gomez. I work for a Baker Hughes company. In Baker Hughes, I'm in charge of one software solution related to emissions management and methane included. We are going to speak about this software offering, but before that, I would like to thank the organizer of this event, the energy community, for inviting Becky Hughes first to this discussion, but also for giving us the opportunity to speak about what we're doing in the space of emissions and in methane in particular. I don't know how we want to organize for Q&A. I think that this is at the end of the call. So I would be very happy to address any question at the end of the call. But if this is not the most appropriate time, then I will be happy to address it in separate discussions. Before, looks like there is a problem. Yes, it works. Before we speak about the software offering and what Becky Hughes is doing in emissions, a very quick word on who is Becky Hughes and what we're doing in the space of decarbonization. So for those that are not aware, not knowing Becky Hughes, so Becky Hughes is an energy technology company. By energy technology company, we mean we provide equipment like turbines, compressors, and pumps that, by the way, are contributing to greenhouse gas emissions. We also provide services, maintenance services, drilling services, and finally also digital solutions for reliability management, for maintenance management, and so on. So really equipment, services, and digital solutions for industrial energy players in oil and gas, in mining, in power, in chemicals. So all these energies that today are hard to abate in industries for our decarbonization challenge. In the space of decarbonization, we first define our own target of reducing carbon emissions. So we committed a few years ago to be net zero in carbon emissions by 2050. We are now in the middle of this journey. We already have some substantial achievements that you can see at the bottom of this page here. But there is still a long journey in front of us, but the company is fully committed to address this target of net zero emissions by 2050. An important point to notice is what you have here on the right side. So Becky Hughes is also part of several associations and industry groups that we believe are very relevant for discussing together the challenges of the industry and what are the solutions that are the most appropriate for decarbonization. So we are, for example, part of NGMP. We are signatory of the NGMP, the Methane Guiding Principles. And we are also key members of the IOGP, the EPECA, and some European initiatives like the European Clean Hydrogen Alliance, Battery Alliance, and so on. So really, in a nutshell, we wanted first as an introduction to speak about who is Becky Hughes, but also to show our commitment first to address our own emissions, but also contribute for solving the problem for energy industrial players. So now let's go to what really matters to the audience today. Now, what is doing Becky Hughes now in the space of emissions? When we looked at how to decarbonize our own operations a couple of years ago, we identified 4 main areas that are essential, according to us, for addressing this challenge. Number 1, building expertise for understanding this environmental landscape, understanding this challenge, where are the opportunities for decarbonization. Then after having monitoring and detection capabilities for us to address some areas that were not clear in terms of emissions. Finally, of course, looking at abatement opportunities. And recently, we started internally an internal project for development of software solutions for managing our own emissions. This is exactly the same approach that we are now following for our customers. And this is where we are building technology and expertise to best serve the energy industrial players. So let's go one by one to each of these buckets. For the first one, by expert advisory services. So here we have a combination of environmental emission experts and operational experts that guide our customers in understanding the regulatory landscape, defining meaningful decarbonization strategy and execution roadmaps that are tangible and realistic, because this is often the problem that we see when we engage with our customers. And probably the most important is probably the last part, supporting our customers in the execution of this decarbonization roadmap. So this is helping our customers qualify the opportunities that they're having, that they have identified for reducing their emissions. So this is really the first bucket, expertise that is, according to us, fundamental as a starting point for engaging in this journey. Then in the second bucket, for monitoring and detection, we have a couple of solutions, and I'm not going to detail every single solution that we have in this map, but I would be very happy to address this in a separate discussion. But I'll mention the ones that, according to us, are the more relevant for methane emissions. So in monitoring and detection, these are solutions like Lumen Terrain and Lumen Sky, for example, are ground-based technologies or drone-based technologies that enable the continuous monitoring for the ground-based for terrain, or the detection of venting and fugitive methane emissions. Flaring, FlareIQ is another one. So FlareIQ is a solution that we install on flares that enable the monitoring of the flare destruction efficiency and for the monitoring of methane that are released directly to the atmosphere due to incomplete combustion. These are examples of solutions that we have in the space of monitoring and detection. In the third bucket, we have some abatement technology and services that are very niche capabilities, specific for a very, very specific problem. So in the space of methane, for example, I can give some examples, the low emission valves for venting and fugitives. So these are valves that are available for replacing pneumatic controllers that are today releasing hydrocarbon, including methane, directly to the atmosphere. So these valves have either a very low emission or zero emissions, and these are solutions immediately available for replacing pneumatic controllers. For associated gas recoveries in flaring, for instance, here we have solutions that enable the capture of the gas that today is not able to be processed in the asset of our customers and re-inject it into the network to avoid flaring and consequently methane emissions. On the right side, you have the solutions that the company is currently investing in, mainly in hydrogen and CCUS and in clean power. So these are technologies that are still in development. We have already some substantial achievements, but still a lot of innovation to happen in this space for these solutions to be more efficient and more affordable for our customers. A quick word on carbon monetization services. So carbon monetization services, here Baker Hughes is partnering with trading companies for enabling our customers to monetize their investment in abatement technology by entering into the carbon trading markets. So Baker Hughes provides the abatement technology, collaborates with the trading companies that are going to the trading market for the customer to be able to monetize his investment or to have a better business case for his investment while he's deciding to invest in abatement technology. And finally, the software solution is the one we are going to look at today, more in depth. This solution is called IEMS. I will speak about it right after in the next page. Okay, so now for the software offering. This solution is called IEMS. IEMS stands for Industrial Emission Management System. So this is a combination of software and support services with the objective of supporting our energy industrial customers in oil and gas, power, and now we are developing capabilities in mining and chemicals for monitoring, abatement, and reporting of emissions. By greenhouse gas emissions, we are covering today CO2, CH4, N2O, and we have the ambition to cover the 7 greenhouse gases in our future development. So you have 4 main capabilities in this offering. The first one, the monitoring capability. So here we enable an automated, accurate, and near real-time monitoring of emissions at different levels of the organization, at enterprise level, at plant level, at equipment level and even at the source level, when in one equipment you have several sources of emission. Automation, how? By connecting directly to customer data systems where we are pulling all the data necessary for quantifying emissions. Process data, flow data, temperature data. These are examples of data that we are considering for the quantification. Our competitive edge is on the accuracy, and this is really where all the team involved in this offering is really spending most of his effort to be able to develop intelligent models, different methodologies for better quantifying emissions with a higher level of accuracy. So here we are not following the standard methodologies of leveraging general emission factors, for instance. Here we are leveraging our knowledge of the equipment that are contributing to emissions, turbines, compressors, pumps, and these are equipment that are directly emitting or equipment that are indirectly emitting. So for example, equipment that are consuming energy and indirectly contributing to emissions. So we leverage our knowledge of these equipment for developing more tangible and more accurate quantifications of methane emissions, CO2 emissions, and N2 emissions. We are also integrating with measurement data. This integration today is a manual integration, but we have the ambition tomorrow to integrate to third-party solutions for automatically pulling the right data. But we integrate measurement data for providing a consolidated view of emissions. Consolidated view being quantified emissions and measured emissions all together to provide a single picture of the emission performance to our energy customers. The abatement capabilities are in three main different areas. The first one is the ability to generate emission anomalies. So we have some models that detect if something is considered wrong or not as expected, and we notify the end user about these anomalies, and we invite him to have a look, diagnose the problem, and implement corrective actions if that makes sense. These for enabling a more reactive answer to emission problems and avoid a situation where this is not properly tracked. And then we realize weeks or months after that there was a problem that was generating emission and that was not properly addressed. The second is on the identification of optimization opportunities. And you see this part is very operational because we believe that it's really in operations that we need to equip for them to be able to control and then to mitigate and optimize their emissions. So this identification of optimization opportunities is here we are identifying any performance that is considered not as per design. So we're looking for degraded equipment. If we see that there is a level of degradation of all the equipment that are contributing to emissions, we highlight it to the end user. We quantify the emissions that were above what was considered as normal. And if it's degraded, then we invite the customer for more maintenance or to improve operation practices to go back to the performance as per design. The third bucket is the identification of revamping opportunities. So here, by optimization, our customers will never be able to meet their decarbonization targets, which are quite challenging. At the end, there is a need for revamping facilities, for switching for more efficient machinery from an emission standpoint, but also from an energy standpoint. So here we identify where are the highest opportunities, opportunity by revamping, opportunities addressable by revamping. And here we qualify what is the potential, which is the carbon reduction potential by switching to new technologies, and what is behind the business case associated to that. The reporting capabilities, so here again, by connecting directly to customer systems, we enable all the automation of quantification, of monitoring of the emissions. And as a result, we automate the reporting of emissions, the actual performance versus target of emissions, as per operational or compliance requirements. Speaking about methane, the GMP 2.0 capabilities. So today we are in the middle of the development of these capabilities. We have already some very promising results, but we are still continuing these developments. Our objective is to be in the coming months fully compliant with all the requirements of GMP 2.0. So this is for level 3, for level 4 quantification, for level 4 calibration, for level 5 reconciliation, and overall reporting capabilities. Now in BKUs, we believe that software is very important. In data, there is a lot of patterns that are very relevant for providing the right insights for our customers. But we also believe that it's important to complement these data-driven insights with expert services. So having the right experts, either environmental experts, either machinery experts or operational experts that can support our customers in several levels, either by diagnosing anomalies, so supporting the customer understand why this anomaly has been identified and what is the most appropriate action that makes sense for him, but also by supporting our customer to assess what are the opportunities that were identified by software and qualify it from a technical perspective, from a business perspective. So this is where we believe the expert support make a lot of sense, and we provide to our customers on demand from remote this level of services to complement the insights that we are generating with the software offering. In the 15 minutes that were allocated to us, we were able only to cover the very high-level picture. However, I will be very happy and keen on deep diving on all these different capabilities and have, if required, also technical discussions about all how this works. So if there is any question, I will be very happy to address it either through this discussion or in a separate call, if that makes sense to you. If you want to know more about these different offerings that we briefly introduced today, you can visit our website, or you can contact us directly through this email address that you can see here, or in my email address if your area of interest is more around software. So with that, I would like to thank you. And if there is any question, please drop it in the chat. I would be very happy to cover them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was really comprehensive and really in 15 minutes. I know that is a lot behind it, but this is actually the point, like to drag attention, and then people can go in more details. I mean, either now with questions during this webinar, or really to contact you as you said, and again go into the details. Now I would like to ask Robert to continue with his presentation, and then we will have a Q&A session. Thank you.
Can you guys see my screen? Is it sharing?
Not yet. We can hear you well, but screen is also coming.
Okay, good. Great. Well, thank you a lot. So I'm Robert Kester. I'm the president of Honeywell Rebellion, and I'll be talking about some of the technologies we're developing around the emissions and control reduction space. Before I get into that, just more broadly in terms of Honeywell, Honeywell's focused on sustainability. That's a key initiative within the organization, and we have several offerings covering this space. We do a lot in the renewable fuels area, as well as developing a whole platform of technologies around carbon capture, energy storage, as well as advanced recycling technologies. Like I said, my talk will be focused almost exclusively on the emissions control and reduction area. But if anyone's interested in learning more, please reach out to me and I can connect you with some of the other groups within Honeywell that are working on each one of these offerings. In terms of the emission space, we're really focused on developing an end-to-end solution that starts out with measurement technologies. We have two different classes of technology for measuring, greenhouse gas emissions as well as methane. We have point sensor networks, which are being developed right now for deployment at sites to really provide continuous measurement at the source level. And then we have, mobile solutions of those sensors as well, from fixed to more mobile. And then we also have a platform of camera technologies, which provide more of a site level measurement as well. So we're really looking at developing the full capability of measurement for a site with the focus on continuous measurement. And then complemented with that, we have a software package both that runs on-prem as well as cloud-based that'll be taking these continuous measurements and adding a level of baselining and monitoring, and then coupled with optimization programs as part of our A360, where we can actually recommend programs at your site that can drive emission reductions, whether it's optimization of equipment or even programs where we can even go out and fix and remediate leaks. And the overall goal of that, it's to measure, it's to monitor, but then really to drive reduction and allow corporations to hit their commitments. This overall solution is OGMP compliant. We're focused on achieving the level 4 and level 5 with real-time measurement. So measurements at the source level as well as at the site level. And then a big part of that is the reconciliation between those two approaches. And that's really where I think a lot of value can be driven with this solution. We're using our continuous cameras as well as network sensors. We can look at some of those discrepancies and figure out what's going on with the emissions at a site. That's kind of a high level what we're developing at Honeywell. For this talk, I'll be focused primarily on the camera solutions and some of the innovative things we're driving there, and a lot of the value that we're providing for customers at the site level monitoring. So in terms of our software interface, actually, it's all cloud-based. This is what it looks like at a site. We essentially install these continuous cameras. They're based on a technology called hyperspectral imaging, and they provide 24/7 monitoring of your site. They move around to different locations and provide alarming by exception. So if you see a leak, you'll then get a video like the ones I'm about to show. These were actually recorded at sites. The one on the right-hand side, this was an emission from a process operation event where they're performing a routine filter replacement. And what they didn't realize is that they were releasing a large amount of methane mixed in with H2S that was going up and over the facility. And that's really, one of the things that deploying technologies like this more advanced technologies like this is you really start understanding your emission profile and understanding not only your fugitive leaks, but leaks that come from operations. And it allows you to start optimizing how you operate and perform service work at your site, not just for safety, which is important, but then also from an environmental perspective. And then the other video I'm showing here, this is something in the US in West Texas in particular, we see a lot of where there's a fair amount of fugitive emissions coming from storage tanks as part of the upstream process. There's pressure relief valves on these tanks, and this is also a case where continuous monitoring is really allowing our operators to understand their emissions, because these pressure events can change periodically. So doing just normal inspections at sites, you're not even able to catch these types of events, because it really depends on where the process is, especially in upstream, as they're pulling oil and gas out of the ground. And so having a system like this allows them to better understand their emission profile. In terms of the solution itself, we have a couple of different models of the camera based on the size of the site. We provide software to the customer, both on-prem and in the cloud. And then we do offer a suite of services. Since this is new technology, it's very important that we work closely with our customers on determining the optimum position for these cameras to maximize the coverage, reduce their emission profile based off of their, corporate ESG goals, or from a regulatory perspective. And then, once it's deployed, we can then drive that full 360 and also recommend remediation programs as well. In terms of the technology itself and how it works, there is a lot of optical gas imaging technology on the market, more for surveys where crews walk around looking for leaks. This technology, it's similar in the fact that it provides an image, but the physics of it is very different. The best analogy to use is, those are IR cameras. They look for temperature difference. Our cameras are really focused on identifying chemicals. So it's really from that perspective, it's fundamentally different. Our system, it's similar technology to what NASA uses to determine what galaxy, their gas composition is. We've just taken that technology and put it into a camera system that, can run 24/7 at a site. We're looking in the long wave region, and we actually look at the absorption signature of the molecules and read those off like a barcode. So in real time, you get a video like what you see over here, where every pixel in this image, every point in this image, I'm looking for gas, but I only highlight the pixels where I know that there is a chemical, where there is a gas molecule that's present. Now, for a lot of the focus in the industry right now is on methane, with good reason. It's a greenhouse gas, and it absorbs heat 86 times worse than CO2, but it's not the only gas present at these sites, and it's also not the only greenhouse gas. That's the other advantage of this technology, is it's adaptable for a host of different chemicals and gases. This is just a short list of some of the gases we can monitor for this technology. For customers to monitor for these gases, it's a very simple software update. We just provide a different algorithm to monitor for the gas, and there's no hardware change. And so our customers can, monitor for methane, but they can also monitor for, ammonia or other types of gases at the site. So it really helps, make it adaptable as the needs of our customer change. And one thing I wanted to highlight here is really the advantages, both from an economic as well as from an environmental perspective, of continuous monitoring. What I'm showing in this slide right here is actually two different programs, LDAR programs we run in the States, and it's very similar in the EU. There's these periodic checks where you go to a site, you look for leaks, and then you leave, and then you go back to the site a quarter later looking for leaks, or in some cases annually. You'll inspect the site at the beginning of the year, let's say, and then you won't inspect it again at the end of the year. The problem with that is that leaks can occur in between these leaks or these inspection points. and that can contribute a lot to the environmental output. So what you see here is with continuous monitoring, we have huge potential, right? We have huge potential because we can, detect the leak as soon as it occurs. So on a quarterly basis, you save both, penalty dollars, which in the US, the penalty is based on when you detect the leak, and then you have to backdate it to when your last inspection was. So from a financial perspective, we decrease the penalties. But then also from an environmental perspective, we can catch leaks as soon as they occur, and somebody can go out and fix that. And that's really, that's what's key in these cases. Here, we're just putting two, simulations of when leaks may occur from an annual perspective and from a quarterly perspective. And you can just visually see the huge benefit of having a continuous monitoring system. The other thing I want to highlight that a lot of our customers have been coming back to us is, when you can baseline a site, when you can monitor for these leaks, you actually have the opportunity to optimize your repairs. Because what we have found is small leaks can quickly escalate into big leaks, which then cause a shutdown of sites. So on a gathering station in the midstream space, you can have a Nardo valve, for example, that gets cracked open because it overpressurized, dirt gets in there. That leak can go undetected for an entire year. And the gas that's mixed in there, you have methane, but you also have very corrosive gas. And so that gas can actually cause a catastrophic fail of a seal that they would never know about. And we're deploying technologies like this camera. We can catch that our Nardo valve isn't cracked open, and then send somebody out to fix it. There is a lot of these sites, there is no gas monitoring and no sensors that can tell them that this Nardo valve is open. And that's what we've seen, from deploying this is, it's not only is it good for the environment, but it's also good business. We have a case study with the customer that's deployed, I want to say about 32 of these systems right now in the upstream to midstream space, a lot on the tank farm area. And what they have seen is that we've been able to decrease their downtime, their reduced lost product. Oftentimes these sites are very remote, and so in the past they'd have to send people out just periodically looking for leaks. And with this technology now, instead of sending somebody out off of no data, we can actually drive them to send people out only when they need to be there because there's a leak that's detected. And so, there is an initial upfront cost of deploying continuous technologies like this over just doing, periodic surveys. But once you've deployed it, there is a real economic incentive that we're able to demonstrate for a lot of these customers. And so their payback period ends up being, less than a year. And then after that, it really can become, in a sense, a profit center, because what you're not leaking into the air, you're able to keep in the pipe and sell it to the final customer. There's also been some studies recently in the States that have shown the advantages of increased survey frequency for the overall emission mitigation, where there's been a couple of studies done that have shown that the sensitivity of a more frequent inspection all the way to continuous inspection, right? It can be less sensitive. You can have a less sensitive continuous monitoring system. I think this is key because continuous systems are going to be farther away from leak sources than periodic monitoring because they can get very close to a site. But the big advantage of continuous is the fact that we're able to catch leaks as soon as they occur. And so that trade-off between sensitivity versus inspection frequency actually has the potential to significantly reduce the overall emissions that are reduced, within the industry. And so trading off sensitivity. So here, what I'm showing on the far left-hand side is a plot showing, inspections by surveys, LDAR protocols being super sensitive compared to our cameras, but the end result of being continuous versus an annual inspection shows that we're able to reduce emissions by 90%, where let's say you do an inspection twice a year, you're only able to reduce it by about 40%. And that's just fugitive emissions. When you look at vented emissions, continuous also has the ability of looking at vented emissions. Are your compressors along your pipelines, is the rod packing good? Are there any issues with those compressors? That's really, important to also monitor. It's not just, when you think about methane emissions, it's not just fugitive, it's also operational and it's vented. And that's actually where we're seeing a lot of the challenges in the industry today, is how do you catch all of those operational issues that can come up. And so that's really what we've been focusing on quite a bit recently. Here's just a comparison of detection limit between an OGI, our camera, inspection frequency, and the improvement in mitigation, as well as in the reduction of vented sources. In terms of our technology roadmap and where we're headed as a company right now, a lot of our focus has been the continuous leak detection, detect it as quick as possible and then send somebody out to fix the leak. And there's, that's a huge benefit. But then what we're starting to pilot with customers right now, and this falls in line with a lot of the OGMP 2.0 initiative, is that quantification piece, where we'll be able to start quantifying and baselining sites, both at a component as well as a site level, and then looking how to close that loop. And then, that's really what's in development right now, and we're launching products that can do that this next quarter and into the first quarter of next year. And then finally expanding the offering to get it into more hazardous locations. There's a lot of offshore oil and gas production in Europe, in the North Sea. So expanding this portfolio into the offshore. And so with that, I'd like to thank you guys for allowing me to talk, and then open things up if there's any questions.
Robert, very much for this clear and also comprehensive presentation and given time. I'm not sure if you heard me before, but I said thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
It was really comprehensive and in time as we agreed. So thank you very much for that. I think that we had really two excellent presentations, somehow from different angle than we put it before. And I also see some questions popping up in chat already. So one was about concrete connection between software and measurement method, but Stefan already answered it, but you can elaborate more if you like. And it was also more comment than question by Professor Stern on transparency and how to link this transparency and technologies which we saw. So please, Stefan, you can start actually answering both questions, and then we will come back to Robert, maybe to put similar one and one more popped in my mind. So Stefan, please.
Sorry, I was on mute. With pleasure. Wenke, so first of all, thank you for your question. So what I was writing down in the chat box was that we are not looking at which method was used for the measurement. It was method 21, or if it was OGI cameras, continuous monitoring. So again, here we are speaking only about the software offering. We're not covering the measurement piece. So we provide, however, a portal where you can log all the emission data. The end user or the third party can log all the emission data, define what is the type of greenhouse gas that have been identified, the quantities, the date of observation, the duration of observation of emissions, what is the equipment type that was associated to this emission. If an equipment type is very difficult to identify for one emission, so for example, if you're using satellites, if you're using drones, airplanes, or even continuous monitoring, if it's not really in the vicinity of the emission sources, you might not be able to identify exactly what is the equipment type that is associated to this emission. So we provide GPS localization, and from there, our expert supports services are defining what is the most probable emission sources that is related to this emission that was measured. We aim, however, to connect directly to third-party solutions, but I think that here we are all in agreement that if we want this to happen tomorrow, we need first to define data standards and define really standards that define, okay, all measurement data has to be structured in a very proper way, in such a way that all can communicate and we can all integrate each other data. This is if this happens, and we really hope that regulators will work in this direction, and we are in discussion with some regulatory bodies for this specific topic. Then it will be very easy then for us to connect directly with an API connector, to connect directly with third-party solutions and ingest directly this data. But today that's not the case. Today it's just a logging portal. I don't know if this answers to your question, Wenger.
Thank you, Stefan. Maybe Professor Stern would like to elaborate more on his thoughts about this issue between transparency and disclosure of data and requirements from society and actually obligations which companies has.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the problem. These are very, very interesting presentations. But when I ask this question to all information and service providers, the answer that you get, very understandable answer, which is, it is up to our clients to decide how to disclose the information or whether to disclose the information. Now, I understand that, but there is an enormous problem of credibility, which is not addressed by most of the literature. And I'm not clear in my own mind whose responsibility it is to try to get this credibility, to improve this credibility. But if we leave it to regulators to decide, and particularly if we leave it to OGMP 2.0, to the IMEO, they've already signed non-disclosure agreements with their industrial parties. So where we sit in Oxford, we sit between the industry and the NGOs and the universities. And when you mention commercial confidentiality to these people, they say, yes, we know what commercial confidentiality means. It means that you are hiding your emissions and you are not willing to tell us how you have calculated this, how you've measured it, and how you've reported it. And this is very difficult to respond to, given the level of, shall we say, skepticism about the bona fide concerns of the industry. Now, I'm not suggesting it's your responsibility to do this, but I think you need to address this in a very specific way with clients, because I'm concerned that all of the very interesting proposals and solutions that you've put forward could be discredited by a lack of transparency.
No, I think those are great comments, Jonathan. And fundamentally, I think that is a big challenge with oil and gas companies today is this whole thing is based off of trust. And so, you need to be transparent. It's a challenging problem. And I think as Honeywell, that's kind of where we've come at it from. I think that providing a continuous data record, that provides visual imagery, right? Which I think EPA has said is right now the best standard of emission reduction, right? You have some of that confirmation, but more importantly, you need that real-time feedback. You can't be doing these spot checks and I think get to a level of trust within the industry because there's just too much unknown between these points. And then the other thing we've taken a look at is similar to accounting principles, GAAP principles and whatnot, is including third parties. I don't think as Honeywell we could, accredit it ourselves, right? I mean, audit ourselves. I think if you can pull in other third parties that can essentially audit your emission books, that can provide another level of accountability. So I think you kind of need both things. I think you need good data, you need continuous data, and then you also need third parties that can come in and validate the accuracy of the information you provide. But it's a challenge because the problem is invisible, it's odorless, and it's hard to contain.
And to build on what Robert was saying, Jonathan, what we have seen with some customers as well is that when they reach a higher level of granularity and accuracy, and when they identify new emissions, they address them immediately. They look at the problem, they don't hide the problem, at least for some of them, probably those that want to show the path. I think the solution will also come from these ones. These that will really, with granularity, with accuracy, look at their actual performance, address it, and when they are more confident, show it publicly, showing the path for the others, and also for regulators to define the way for more accurately and more transparently calculating and reporting emissions. So there is, of course, the push from the top, from regulators. There is also these incentives, these initiatives from oil and gas, from power, chemicals, and mining customers to show the path to the industry, appear in front of their peers as the leaders in that space of decarbonization. And I guess that this will also be a piece of the solution for overcoming the challenge that you just described. And really, we have engaged with some customers that are really trying to make it right, and sometimes going much further than what the regulators are asking for, probably for showing some kind of competitive advantage in front of the others, showing that they are much more respectful in terms of decarbonization. But again, all of this solution of transparency will really come in this discussion that I was describing at the very beginning of my presentation, being part of industry groups and associations where regulators are coming, where service companies like us are coming, and where operators are coming, sharing their challenge and trying to find their solutions. So I strongly believe that this is where the solution will come from. And by the way, at our level, with a lot of humility, we also share our perspective of this problem. So for my team, so the software team, showing, okay, we're hearing this challenge of transparency and credibility, and you're totally right, Jonathan. For us to be much more credible publicly, we would like to report publicly this information, but unfortunately we can't. So for us to address this challenge, we propose options. And our role as a service company is to enable technology that will help accurately estimate emission. And then after, it's up to the customer to address this, show the path to industry, and then go publicly and show how this was handled and be more transparent, hoping that others, the peers, will be following. This is probably one option that we shall consider.
I also wonder
Thank you very much for answering. And yes, please, Jonathan, go ahead if you have more to add.
I don't, sorry, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I would like to have one comment from both of you. Do you understand companies who say that this is confidential information? In other words, is there some, in your view, you provide a service, they pay you for it, so it's their information, and it's not for you to disclose it without their agreement. But I cannot understand the argument that this is confidential information, in the sense that this is not information which somehow provides a financial disclosure to the public. This is about, how did you measure? No, what did you do to measure it? How are you reporting it? And did somebody verify your calculations? And if so, who was that? And this is another credibility problem, that when I'm asked, as I am, to say, well, why is this information confidential? I can't explain. So I'm not asking you to defend your clients, just asking you whether you understand what they say when they mean that it's confidential. Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't get into, their internal policy, especially around emissions data, because, I think your concerns that you highlight are very valid. I mean, we all breathe the same air, right? But one thing I think that could be, to get around some of that concern that could be beneficial, is to create a framework where companies can share their best practices, as well as where they're at in a, let's say, an anonymous fashion. That way we can actually look at that way at least we get the data, available, and then we can start looking at, trends and, best practices, and start sharing, maybe lessons learned in a more safe environment. If there are some of our customers that are concerned about public backlash on them and whatnot. So I can't, I don't know from the customer side, but I'm thinking of, how do we still accomplish the same goals, and how do we create a, let's say, safe environment for them to, start sharing with us what's really happening, so we can drive change together.
To build on what Robert was saying, and again, this is the perspective from a service company, from what we've heard while engaging with the different stakeholders in that space. I think that you have first players that have been running these calculations and these measurement surveys in a manual manner, where it's very difficult at the end to find track records about how all of this has happened. So if this is done, for instance, with consulting companies that are manually quantifying all the different emissions, looking at operational data, or looking at measurement data, it's at the end, the outcome, the deliverable that these consulting companies are providing is the final report as per their standard requirements, EPA, Greenhouse Gas Protocol, GMP 2.0, whatever. And sometimes there is a feasibility challenge to go back to all the track records. Oh, how I was calculating that specific emission from this specific source. So this is one angle of your question. After the second one is the more this gets exposed publicly, I guess, for our customers, the more you have questions, you're receiving questions about, have you thought about it? Can you have you considered all your different emissions? Are you sure your calculations are correct, etc.? So there are some challenges for our customer. Feasibility standpoint first, after the willingness to report it, to expose this to public questions that, according to me, are answering why they are a bit reluctant to share all this information, because they are not required to do so. Our job, our service companies, is to make sure that the information is properly available, so that tomorrow, when we find an agreement collectively on how to publicly report all of this, we are easily able to extract all calculation methodologies and all data sets that have been used for quantification and measurement of these emissions. But I don't think the information is that confidential. I think the granularity and the methodology used is probably not something that customers are willing to expose to the public.
I think that we just got a new idea and new topic for one of the webinars, which will be then transparency from different angles. Yeah, we passed time a bit, but maybe here some more questions might come, short one. And I have one actually for Robert, and this is related with this comparison between continuous monitoring of leakages and doing ad hoc checks. So for that, do you have some I don't know, recommendation or threshold or something got it from studies? If this is actually the same principle for all flows, for all diameters, or it should be considered in relationship really with diameter of pipe or volume of flow?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. You know, it should vary by the piece of equipment as well as the emission, let's say, risk profile of the equipment. But I think when you start getting down to that level, I think it becomes really complicated. And so one approach that's been thrown out with the EPA in their more recent draft rules is just to create a standard threshold for continuous that is higher than the LDAR surveys, and then just adopt that more broadly across their facilities. And I don't quite remember what that threshold is, but I can definitely send that across. But it is based off of the environmental improvement compared to just your periodic surveys. So when you looked at my plot, there was the sensitivity and then the emission mitigation. It was kind of balancing those two. And that data is based off of, I'd say, probably 10 to 15 different published studies over the past decade.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for hints in direction where to look further.
Yep.
With that, I don't see raised hands. I don't see question in chat. And anyhow, we are at the end of our hour. To be honest, I thought, okay, one presenter gave up in the last minute, so 1 hour will be enough to cover all, but it's not. And I am glad and grateful for that, for your excellent presentations, for contributions, and to opening new topics for the next one, as Professor Stern underlined it. We made record of this webinar. It's going to be on the websites of GIE, Marco Gas, and Energy Community. We also publish our slides, I mean, with consent of our presenters. And what to say, stay tuned, check our website, check emails. I think that this year we will still have 1 or 2 Methane Mondays. And by that, great day to US, then great afternoon to us in Europe, and also good night in Tokyo, I assume, because we always have participants from that side as well. So stay well, and
Thank you.
see you soon.
And thanks for inviting us.
Yeah.
Welcome.